Hey guys, it's Adam, and in this video I'm going to share with you how I wasted my 20s. The reason I wanted to make this video is I think that the mistakes that I made in my 20s are going to set me up to be successful in my 30s. And I want to help you get to that success faster. So the first thing that I didn't understand when I was younger is that a person doesn't need more information. They need to learn how to better apply information. See, sometimes you'll see those videos where they'll say, I read 100 books and this is what happened. Well, I can tell you what happened. They didn't remember much. If you want to apply information, what you need to do is follow a 3-step process. And this process was something that I didn't understand for years. And the first thing is you need to feel that you absolutely must learn this information. If it's not a must for you, then it's not going to last. And then the second thing is you need to interact with information until that information becomes a part of you. And then lastly, you need to give that information time to sink into your heart. Because if you do that, that's when the real change happens. The second thing that I didn't understand is that degrees, unfortunately, these days mean almost nothing. And I'm sad to say that I'm all the way almost to being finished with a master's degree, and it took me this long to learn that information. So what happened is my parents obviously encouraged me to get a bachelor's degree, and at the time I was so focused on getting one because I thought that a bachelor's degree was going to help me get a great job, which isn't necessarily true. Anyway, so I was looking at the list of degrees that were available at the school that my parents were suggesting for me to go, and the degree that I wanted at the time was cybersecurity, and it just wasn't on the list. And the first thing that I feel kind of stupid about now is I didn't realize that computer science probably would have been a perfectly acceptable substitute. But I just, I didn't make that connection. And so I went to that school without completely knowing what I was doing and why I was doing it. And even though I got a degree at the end, I really regret not talking with my parents more and being like, no, this is not the degree that I want, and I know the degree that I want, and I need to go to a different school that has it. Because how you feel about whatever you're doing, it really impacts your motivations. So my first piece of advice for you is think a little bit less about degrees and think a little bit more about things like certifications and networking, interviewing, experience. Those things will really help you get a job these days. But also, if you're going to do a degree, pursue what you really want. Otherwise, you'll get to the end and feel a lot less satisfied like I do. Another thing that I just laugh about now, and that honestly I think is hilarious, is when I was younger, I was so focused on getting a job that I didn't think about the fact that I probably should have been starting businesses. See, even if I'd started businesses just on the side, I probably would have been a lot farther along than I am now. And I could have been doing things like setting up affiliate marketing, I could have been drop shipping, or even mining crypto. And I'm just starting to think about these things now. And what I think is incredible is back about 10, 12 years ago, Bitcoin, for example, was worth about 8 cents. Now, I want you to think about that. So I was so focused on getting a job, so focused on what honestly didn't really matter, that I didn't notice opportunities that were right around me, right in front of my face, honestly. And when you're self-absorbed like that and you're living in a state of fear where you're like, oh no, I gotta get a job, then you're gonna miss out on those opportunities that are right there. I mean, if I had bought Bitcoin, I could literally be living on an island right now. The next life lesson that I have for you is don't do something unless you want to. And we kind of already talked about that in relation to my bachelor's degree, but I actually kind of made the same mistake with that opportunity that I had to go on a service mission. So that was something that I definitely wanted to do, but I don't think I was 100% prepared at the time. Like I wasn't 100% in. It was on my list. It just wasn't necessarily the right time for me, but it was the time that everyone else thought that I should go. And so I just went. And that made that experience more challenging because I wasn't 110% in. And just to kind of give you a taste of what that was like, so I went to Russia. Russia is an enormous country. It's cold everywhere in the winter, so winters are just rough, they're cold. The language is like in the top 6 hardest languages. And, it can be a stark contrast walking around just a general place in Russia, not like Moscow or St. Petersburg, but just somewhere else, where a lot of people, for example, live in stone buildings, and it kind of has especially during the winter, sort of like a dark and dirty feel, because you'll have clouds, it's cold, and they put sand out to make it so the roads aren't slippery, so it's just kind of muddy everywhere. It can also feel really dangerous. Like, for example, I found blood outside my apartment one time, and there were some missionaries that were there that got attacked, And so it's easy to get kind of like the winter blues while you're there. That was a very challenging but also rewarding experience, and it just would have been easier if I had gone when I was ready, when I wanted to, and I was 110% in. So another life lesson is only accept exactly what you want. And the reason I say this is, so I don't know if you know this, but I served in the US Air Force, and I had researched a lot about like what you'll experience at BMT, basic military training, but I didn't really think about the process of actually joining the Air Force. Now I don't know if you know this, but the Air Force is a kind of interesting branch because you often don't get a guaranteed job when you go in. You kind of have to just want to be in the Air Force. And what they do is ask you to make a list of jobs that you'd like to do and put them in order, which I don't think they really look at. They just kind of do it as an exercise. They really have a list that they need to fill, and they're just hoping to move you into one of those slots. Well, the recruiter called me up one day and was really excited and said, I have an open electrical contract for you. And I was like, open electrical? And basically what that meant was I could go into any career field that fell under that umbrella of electrical work. And really what I wanted to do was IT in the military. And so I kind of naively was like, maybe there's a chance I'll get IT. And so I just accepted the electrical contract. And I went in, and instead they put me in electrical systems, like actually being an electrician. And let me just tell you, it's really hard to do a job well that you didn't pick. So what I would encourage you to do is, instead of being like me, only accept exactly what you are looking for. Because let me tell you, I am really glad I went through that experience of going to Minot, North Dakota and doing electrical work. And to really put it in perspective, I want you to imagine being in a lift and being like 5 stories up. You're removing a light. The system is still energized. It's freezing outside, so your snot is running down your face and literally freezing, and your hands are shaking because you've been holding them up so high for so long, and you're unscrewing this light and you're just hoping that you don't get shocked, that you don't fall. Arms are just aching. That was basically my experience. So it just goes to show that you really want to be careful to know what you want and go after exactly what you want so that you get what you're looking for. The next piece of advice that I would give you is don't try to be good at everything. See, this is a mistake I've made consistently throughout my whole life. But here's the thing. If you focus on just one thing, you become someone that no one wants to compete with. And what I wish I would have done is, for example, back when I was young, I wish I would have picked a very specific skill. Like, for example, learning Linux, and then studied that skill, learned it really well, and I could have gotten the kind of work I have now at a much younger age. Because honestly, if you can prove you're good at something, and that's exactly what that job is looking for, then you're going to be a lot more likely to get that work, even if you don't have degrees and certifications and all this other experience. If you can show that you know your stuff, it can go a long way. Because like, for example, I work as a server administrator, and I use some Linux commands at my work, but if I knew Linux really well, I could get a job as a Linux server administrator, which Linux is a system that isn't used as much, but when it is used, the skills for that system are in demand. And so, I just think back how much money I could have made as a much younger man if I had just picked something and stuck with it and focused on it. So I guess the last piece of advice I would give you is start earlier. For example, I just think it's literally ridiculous. I've been wanting to do karate for over 20 years, and I just now started doing that. And so if there's something that you want to do, just start doing it now so that you don't feel how I feel much later in your life. Really, honestly, the takeaway from all this is you will miss out on opportunities when you are focused on the wrong things, and when you forget to subscribe to my channel.